happy to be here. And I'm thankful that you guys are here, but also that they're real people, because I'm definitely a people person. I'm the person that my husband has to be like, hey, hugging is weird right now for people, so don't do that. And I still do, so. This is funny. This popped up in my time hop when I was building this presentation. Sorry, my hair everywhere. And I was like, wow, what crazy timing, because in 2017, I really kind of was introduced to Plywood in 2016. And in 2017, I went to a retreat. And I just want to give you guys a quick catch up. So this is Good Grit. It is a magazine. We are that. But we're really kind of more of a progressive Southern brand. Tout ourselves in being incredible storytellers. We really want to inspire you to live a big, full life. We want you to know that it's okay to fall down and to get up with a good attitude. And so we have a magazine, we have a digital platform, we launched a creative agency in late 2019 that actually outgrew the magazine financially in only 6 months, which I would love to tell you is like a huge thing, but obviously magazines they're not super lucrative. In case anyone is thinking about starting one, maybe call me. I'll hook you up with some info, might change your mind. But I want to tell you just a little bit about Good Grit. So in 2014, I read an article in the New York Times that pissed me off, frankly, because it's so good. And I was like, why is New York doing such a great job telling our story, and could we be doing better? But specifically for kind of breaking those stereotypes. I was like a huge social responsibility girl. I like to say before it was cool, but probably not. I really saw this trend of kind of for-profit companies hopefully going away, and that everybody would have something they were tied to and kind of a big why that they were connected to, even in the for-profit world, but love nonprofits. And so a lot of the magazine was built on the shoulders of kind of humanity. Like, how do we tell the stories of nonprofits? And we know that in our experience in storytelling, nonprofits do a great job serving, and sometimes marketing isn't at the top of the list because you're so busy serving. And so that was a big part of our why. Started the magazine with an idea. I had never had a magazine subscription before, so that's like good. Obviously, I was prepared to start a magazine, said no person ever. I remember calling my best friend in North Carolina, and I was like, I think I'm starting a magazine. She was like, do you read magazines? And I was like, don't judge me, okay? I believe this is from the Lord. I need to do this. And so I did. So I started fundraising, and that is actually what we're going to talk about today. Because it's kind of a dirty word, or it can be, right? It's like a scary topic. Regardless of if you're a for-profit company or you're a nonprofit, fundraising is tricky because A, it's hard. B, you're typically fumbling your way through it, the first time you do it at least. And it's hard to know if you're making the right choice sometimes, especially if you're taking a big lump sum. But as I'm talking, I just want you to maybe leave some room that even if you are not an entrepreneur that's in the middle of a capital raise, or you're not a nonprofit that's thinking about raising a substantial amount of money to do something really big, I think that what we're going to talk about today is going to lend itself to even just how you think about aligning yourself with clients, with board members, whatever is your thing. I think this is going to make sense. And I'm going to tell it to you through the lens of real things that happened to me. You guys ready? Good. Okay, real quick, I want to just take a temperature check in the room. How many entrepreneurs are here with me? I can't see y'all. Somebody let me know what's going on in that chat. Okay, and then nonprofits. Do I have nonprofits in the room with me? Yes, okay. I know we do. Jeff's right here, front row. Hey. So you guys know about fundraising. It's interesting because I kind of thought, like, should I look up investment? But I decided to go with fundraising because the idea of seeking financial support, regardless of if you're a charity or you're a for-profit company, it's kind of the same deal, right? We're going to someone with an idea, concept, business, and we want them to believe what we believe enough to make a financial commitment to us. And you do that in every area of life. Like, we have to find ways to serve people to get them to buy into whatever it is we're selling. So here's my synopsis of the 3 types of investors or funders. These are all professional. You can Google them. Obviously, I didn't make them up. I'm just kidding. I made these up. This is my idea of what they are. This is my personal experience. So this may not be your experience, but for the sake of storytelling, because I always say I'm a storyteller, I'm going to tell y'all some stories, okay? So we're going to talk about pretend, passive, misaligned investors or funders. Like I said, professional term, pretend, passive, misaligned, obviously. Passive good, and then we're going to talk about active good, aligned investors or funders. Y'all tracking? Okay. All right. So first I'm going to tell y'all a story. So I decide I'm going to start Good Grit, and I'm so excited, okay? I call a dude I know in Savannah. By this time I'm already living in Birmingham, and I'm like, he owns a magazine. So I'm like, I know a guy who owns a magazine. How hard can it be? I know this guy. He does it. So I call him. Hey, I think I'm going to start a magazine. He's like, that's a great idea. Birmingham needs a magazine. I was like, nah, I want to be a regional magazine. And he literally laughed aloud at me, which I love, obviously. And he was like, Laura, that's not really a thing. Like, you don't just start a magazine and then become regional. Like, you have to start and then maybe you grow. And I was like, no, I'm going to be regional. Because I want to compete with, I felt like there was Garden and Gun who did this incredible job. I'm from Savannah. I saw them kind of go through really, really good times, a really, really bad time in the recession, and come back strong. And I love Garden and Gun. It's beautiful, great content, but it was a little bit aspirational. Like, there weren't a lot of people I knew that were rolling around with $40,000 shotguns. I mean, I knew one person, maybe, ever. And then there was Southern Living, which is obviously the giant and the grandmother kind of, literally my grandmother had a subscription to Southern Living. And you could figure out how to make a cake. You can, you're getting cool recipes, you're learning about places. And so I felt like there was this down-to-earth Southern Living. There was this aspirational Garden and Gun. So what about a lane for inspiration? And I thought, okay, let's do it. So we got this name. We're going to invite people into this space. I build a business plan. I become an intern for this guy in Savannah. I'm literally driving there. So I had a little consulting firm, which, by the way, in case y'all were wondering, a consulting firm is what you open if you were in corporate America and you leave your job and you want to become an entrepreneur. You become a consultant because you know everything. I'm just kidding. I don't know everything. I know, surprise. So I was driving on Tuesdays to Savannah, 5 hours from Birmingham, and I would literally work for free for 3 days, and I would run this guy's sales team with the exchange of him teaching me about the business. What's your P&L look like? How are you making money? What's distribution? What's circulation? How do I do all that? So I build a business plan. If we had it today, we could light it on fire. As a pile of ashes, it would be a better business plan than what it was as a whole piece. So I'm like, okay, I got this business plan. I need to raise money now. Now, my life I have spent in sales. So I thought, this is going to be easy, right? Just like I thought we were going to be profitable as a magazine in 6 months. That's what the business plan said, by the way. So I was telling some friends, okay, I need to find someone that gets it. And she's like, I think I know a guy. I think he's in this business. And I was like, cool, how do you know him? And she said, I used to bartend at his Christmas parties. I was like, great. So she got us a meeting, go sit down with him. And he was the first guy to invest. I mean, he believed in it. He said he would run to his mailbox when he got Garden and Gun. He was 70 years old. And he invested in this idea that I had, which is a huge deal when you have somebody who's investing and believing with you. And to this day, I love talking to him on the phone. He's great. But very quickly, I realized there was disalignment. So when he invested, he was like, this is great, I love it. But guess what? He wanted to change and amend our vision almost immediately. But he wanted to be passive. He wanted to be silent. He really wasn't concerned with the terms of our agreement. And so often I would get calls like this. And he knows, by the way, this is like now a funny story because it's been years and I've bought him out since. But he would say, Laura, when are we going to sell the magazine? I'm like, Elton, the magazine is worth $7 right now. The magazine is worth negative $12. Like every time you call, the magazine is worth less than it was the last time you called. So like, this isn't a great time. And he was like, well, you don't think maybe Garden and Gun wants to buy us? I'm like, no, they don't even know we exist right now. We've been in business for 7 minutes. Why do you? So very quickly, like his motives seemed, they were a little different than mine, right? He was very wealthy. And he just didn't get it. But when we started, this is a red flag. I want y'all to think about this. If someone has no expectations of you and they want to give you money, that's a problem. I want to have, if I'm investing in your idea, I should have expectations. I should want to know what you're about and that you're furthering a cause I believe in, that you have some key objectives that you're going to hit. It's not that strings should be attached, but it is that there should be a level of caring, even if they're going to be passive and even if they're going to be silent. But I didn't know that then, right? I just thought, this is awesome. This guy believes in what I'm going to do, until he didn't. His lifestyle didn't really mirror what we were trying to do. And I'm going to leave you with this, and y'all are going to laugh. This is funny. It's funny now. Okay, Elton and I had lunch 6 months ago, and he said, Laura, I wish I wouldn't have sold out of the magazine. And I was like, I'm kind of glad you did. But he said, he called me every month for like, I don't know, a year. And he would say, Laura, when are we going to sell the magazine? And then he would ask some questions, and then he would give me a story idea or whatever, right? But the last time that he called, when I was like, okay, I got to figure something out, he said, Laura, I've just been through a divorce and I'd like to buy new furniture for my house and I really need you to buy me out. I was like, I'm sorry, with my life's work, you're going to buy furniture for your house? Yeah. So we were disaligned, right? Misaligned. Sorry, disaligned isn't a word. I Googled it. Misaligned is the word. I'm good at words. We write a magazine. It's great. Has anybody ever had an experience with an investor or a funder that was misaligned with you? No? Y'all have all had perfect investor relationships. That's great. I love that for you guys. Amazing. Okay, let's talk about passive good. I'm going to tell you another story. So I've raised 3 rounds of capital, by the way, and I'm telling you about each one. So when Elton and I first met and he said, I'm going to invest in Good Grit, I was like, this is awesome. And I told him, we're going to be profitable in 6 months. Because I'm a great salesperson. I've been raising up salespeople for all these years. It's going to be great. Y'all, he said to me, this is real, this was one thing he was definitely right about. He said, Laura, you're going to be out of money in less than a year. And I was like, Red, no, we're not. Guess what? 11 months, 2 days, 13 hours. I'm looking into the face of a payroll that I'm not going to make. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to make payroll. And Jeff and I were just talking about this just before. I feel like the disclaimer of entrepreneurship should be like 1 step away from living in your car at all times. With only 1 misstep, you too could live in your BMW. But you got to be fancy if you own a magazine. But meanwhile, you're like, how am I going to make that payment? That's a whole nother talk. We'll do it later. So anyways, I'm out of money, and I had this really good lead for an advertiser, a big advertiser. And I scheduled the appointment, and he's excited. I walk in with a salesperson, give him the media kit, and I'm like, and he said, are you trying to sell me ads? And I was like, you took this meeting, you knew I was trying to sell you an ad. And he said, oh yeah, I'm not gonna buy any ads. And I was like, what's happening? He was like, are you raising capital? I'm like, if I'm breathing, I'm raising capital. That's how you gotta be as an entrepreneur, by the way. And I said, why? Like, I thought that you were trying to advertise with me. He owned a Budweiser distributorship, a very, very large one. And he said, my wife loves your magazine, and she just really wants it to stick around. And I've heard some good things, and I was like, I'm sorry, did Jesus just roll into this room and is giving me this gift? Like, I can't even tell you. So he said, send me over your paperwork, your package, and I'll let you know. And let me tell you what I loved about Jay. I still love about Jay. Jay's still he is a passive, good investor. He believes in our cause and our mission, and our objectives for business. He regularly has expectations. He is asking me questions at our yearly and quarterly meetings. He's challenging me. He's opening doors in business. Like a passive investor or funder that is good for you also understands your mission and your objectives, and they are going to be open to extending relationships to you. They're going to be invested in seeing you do good, and they agree to terms of a contract. They understand contractually what they're obligating themselves to when they get in. So, and he had great references. Like, I couldn't find anybody to say anything weird. And he has been, so funny story to round that whole little issue out. He told me he would let me know. He said, I'll let you know by Friday. This is like a Wednesday. And payroll was the next week. And he said he would call me. He didn't. And the day that I was like, I'm going to have to let people go. This is just like a fun, like only us entrepreneurs and startups would know this feeling, right? I was like, I had a guy on my team that had 2 children and one on the way. Like, I had a couple of women that I knew like wouldn't be able to pay their rent if I didn't pay them. Like, just a very heavy situation. And I was on the floor in my what we now so lovingly refer to as the Harry Potter apartment. We only call it that because my son's bed was in a closet that we would pull out on the weekends because he was off at school. And I was on the floor in my bedroom where I had to unplug the window unit to plug in my blow dryer to blow dry my hair, because if not, it would like short out the whole apartment. It was like a fancy place is what I'm trying to say. I drove a BMW and I lived in the Harry Potter apartment. That's what y'all need to know about me, okay? It's a real thing. And he texts me. And he said, we're in. While I'm on my floor praying, God, please send some. And he said, we're in. And I called him and I'm like, don't ever text something like that. This is like a life or death situation. And anyways, he's been a passive good investor since 2016. So let's talk about active, good, aligned investors or funders. So in 2018, Eldon had been calling me every day, every other week, asking me to sell, telling me he needed new furniture for his new house. And I had been I'd become best friends with this woman who I just like adored. We did a lot together. She had contributed to the magazine on we used to do guest editors. It was super fun. She had been a guest editor. And we just loved working together when she was so good at things I wasn't good at. And when you're an entrepreneur, how many people know in this room that you have to wear a lot of hats? Every hat, right? You're wearing all the hats. And I'd been doing that. I'd been pretending I was an editor, pretending I was a salesperson, pretending I was I wasn't pretending I was a salesperson. I was a storyteller who had to do all these things and needed to be really good at them in order to survive. And then Shelley came along, and Shelley not only believed what we believed in our core value, she literally lived what we believed. She was a manifestation of good grit. She is so special of a human. She's like the woman that we all know one that like she seems to be good at everything. She's got like 5 kids and she's hustling like 3 other things, and they're all well behaved and look well kept, and you're like, I can't even figure out how to get my son to like wake up right now. I'm like, hi, we have school still, come on, let's do this. She brought clarity and around the meaningful specific that she was going to bring to the table. So what was she good at that was different than what I was good at? And when you are a startup and you're wearing all the hats and you start thinking about scale, you start thinking about needing to have someone who can lighten your load, because passive investors are awesome, even the ones that maybe you're misaligned with. You have to have that money. Sometimes you take the money you can get and you don't even know you're misaligned. You might think you're completely aligned with them until they start calling you and asking you for money for their furniture. And so with her bringing clarity and her being such a creative force, having so many great relationships, the ability for her to step in as a real editor-in-chief, having real partnership, somebody who comes alongside you and says, hey, I can see that what you're carrying is very heavy, and I'm willing to lighten your load, and I'm gonna be, if we're in a trench, we're gonna be in that trench together. If we're on a mountain, we're gonna be on that mountain together, and we're gonna figure it out. We have a very clearly written and executed contract. Like, look, Shelley's my best friend for a couple of years. I mean, like, we got so close. We went through a lifetime of things in only like a year and a half. And I love her. I trust her with my life, with my children, like anything, right? But at the end of the day, when you want to have a great professional relationship with someone, you need to have a great contractual agreement, period, and end of story. And we have a great contractual agreement. I know what she expects of me. She understands what I expect of her as a partner. And I know her because of how she shows up. I know the human she is because I've seen her live her life. I think sometimes when we're taking on someone who's going to be active in a role, if you've been the only one or the main one of the things you want to think through and really be thoughtful about is, do I really know this person? Because oftentimes I think that someone can come along and you can be like, I like them. Man, their energy is great and they're awesome and whatever. But you know what? Nothing replaces the gift of time. Nothing. My husband told me right when we first started dating, he said, because I'm like let's make a decision. Let's go. We're doing this, okay? And he said, Laura, it takes 13 hours to build a Toyota Corolla. It takes 6 months to build a Rolls Royce. So good things take time. It takes time to know someone's character. You're not going to know that right when you meet them. Now, they could have incredible references, and it doesn't change the fact that you and them could have a personal conflict. It can just not work because y'all are just not on the same page, or maybe your personalities conflict, or maybe they're an Enneagram something and you're an Enneagram something, and that don't work, right? Y'all are triggering each other all day long. Maybe y'all have weird trauma. I told Jeff earlier, like, sometimes you bring in your bags and you're like, here's all my baggage, and then later you're like, oh, I forgot to tell you I have like a storage unit. We've all had that happen. But my point is that there's these 3 types that I have experienced. You may have experienced other things. And I think when it comes to investors and funders, you need to be thoughtful about what it is that you want. And sometimes if you're surviving, you just think about what you need. But if you can just take a second and have some people around you. Like, if you're here at Plywood, if you're a part of this community, you have the right people. Like, we don't have anything like this where I am. But I went out of my way. Jeff, I don't know who found who, but I knew somebody that was in this program, and I would come to anything that I got invited to. I wanted to show up. So make sure that you have a good group of humans around you so that you can make these decisions. You can ask yourself the right questions to see, are the motives on the right? Do they believe what you believe? Do you know them by how they're showing up because you have enough history with them? Do they have good references? Are there red flags? If you give yourself a little bit of time, if you're only giving yourself 13 hours, probably not going to know if there's any red flags. But if you can give yourself time, if you have that gift, take it. And I know we don't always. That's it. Thank you, guys.